Hello, everybody. I am on my own today. I'm solo today. Levi is in San Diego at an event. And so we are going to go through some of your channels, look at some of your questions from the group. For those of you who are just joining, this is YouTube for Real Estate. We are going to be talking about all things YouTube. If you have questions about how to be seen more on YouTube, getting your videos out further on YouTube, this is the place to do it. So while people are kind of filtering in, I see a few people who are starting to pour in. We did have some really good questions on our course call this week, all about titles and how do you come up with a great title? This seems to be a question that I get a lot. And I think the reason why it comes up so often is that there's a little bit of a science and a little bit of an art that comes with creating a great title. And so a lot of people make the mistake of going through and trying to search their entire title idea in TubeBuddy. And that will not typically get you very good search results. And here's why. If you start with a long tail keyword, you're going to have a much more difficult time because you have to be in the mind of the person who's actually searching for your topic, right? They may not exactly spell it out the same way that you do in your mind. So the way that I like to do titles is a very specific formula. I like to start with a short tail keyword, usually surrounding the area that you are focusing on for your channel. And so say that you're in Denver, Colorado, and you decided to do a blog on Denver, Colorado. Well, you're going to start with that short tail keyword. You're going to search that in TubeBuddy, see what it looks like. Now you may want to see if Denver, Colorado or Denver CO performs a little bit better. But you're going to want to go ahead and start with that short tail keyword first. Then you want to kind of branch out a little bit. Living in Denver, Colorado, living in Denver, CO, something along those lines. See what that looks like. Denver, CO living, that type of thing. That's kind of going to be the basis for the rest of your title. Now, kind of the fun part kind of comes in. And if you struggle with this part, I'm going to go ahead and give you a book recommendation. There's a book called Words That Sell. It's a great book. It's a marketing book, general marketing, but it gives you a really great idea of some things to use specifically in headlines. If you've ever written any type of, if you've ever worked on a flyer or you've ever worked on something like an email campaign, you want to treat a YouTube title a lot like a YouTube campaign. Think about, what is it going to take to get somebody to click on your video over somebody else's? Obviously, you have your thumbnail, and your thumbnail is going to be probably the number one draw to your video. But the second place that people look is at the headline. And so you want to make that very catchy, but at the same time, you need to include those keywords in there. So that's why I always start with kind of like your baseline. Living in Denver, Colorado is definitely going to be a good key phrase. Now, what that also does when you search for that keyword, it also kind of creates two different keywords that you're now using. You've got Denver, Colorado, and you've got living in Denver, Colorado. You also got living in Denver. So all of those things are combined. That makes it into like 3 or 4 keywords. So that's why I like to start small and kind of branch out a little bit because you can usually fit a couple of keywords in one key phrase. So that's the first thing to do. Next, you need to kind of start thinking about kind of what I was saying before, going back to kind of those words that sell. What are some selling type of words that you could use to kind of sell, because we're not exactly selling a product, but sell your area? One of the ones that I absolutely love to use, I try not to overuse it, but revealed. Denver, Colorado revealed. What is it like living in Denver, Colorado in 2022? Something along those lines. That'd be an excellent title. Now, of course, you only have so many characters, right? So you do kind of have to be, and it forces us to be creative, but it also forces us to be realistic, right? You really have to think hard about your titles because you only have so many characters, but you also want to make it catchy, right? I would say that your first, we usually like to separate them into a couple of different sections when we're doing our titles. You'll see that we use kind of the vertical lines to kind of separate our ideas and separate our keywords. That first section is going to be your most impactful, most important, because that's what the person's going to see before it cuts off your description in like a mobile view or even on a desktop view. You're probably not going to see the full title. So what I would go ahead and do is think of some words, think of one thing. And actually we do this a lot with our video editing clients. Think of one thing that your area is known for. What was kind of the peak, the high point of your video? One of the ones, there was a great video that we put out yesterday where there was a super secret location down, down the street that they wanted to show. So we titled something along the lines of, I can't exactly remember what we did that one, but we did something along the lines of what that area was. Super secret location, top secret location here in the Denver, Colorado area. It wasn't in Denver, Colorado. I'm forgetting what area it was from. But top secret location, you know, it was a neighborhood that was only known to the people who lived in that area. The locals loved it, and it was a hot topic for the people who were living in that area. But for someone who was relocating, they probably would never have heard of this neighborhood, right? So top secret location or top secret neighborhood in Denver, Colorado in 2022. You know, that's a great title as well. So you kind of have to think of something that really draws the eye, really makes people think a little bit about your title. Now, another great tip for your titles is to put a year on them. Putting a year on them, you know, obviously it makes it look like it's current. A great tactic that we've used is like 2022 update, or, you know, next year we'll switch it to 2023 update at the end of the title. So people say, oh, okay, this is the most current. A lot of times people will go looking for like the most current information, especially when you see that an area is completely saturated with other videos or tons of other information. So that's a great tip for somebody who's living in a bigger area, who you feel like there's a ton of competition, which again, we always teach that even a few other real estate agents in your area is not really competition. But for you, if it feels saturated and there's a lot going on around you, using that 2022 update at the end can be a really good tip for you too. That tends to bring in some really good, some good traffic with those types of titles. The next thing that I'll say is capitalization. And this is a question we've gotten quite a bit in the video editing program. When do you use capitalization and when do you not use capitalization? Titles are impactful when they use capitalization correctly. But if you don't use capitalization correctly, it can actually make your video kind of too loud, if you will. So for instance, I like to use them on action words, you know, or emphasis words. Do not overuse capitalization. It's actually something that, you know, way back in the day when I did design school, back in college, one of the things that they mentioned were using bold words or emphasis colors, highlight colors. If you use too much of a highlight color, especially like a red or an orange, that's going to turn somebody off. So if your entire copy is in red and then you have one word in black, you're not really using red as the highlight color, right? Red is typically something that says stop to people in marketing. That's the same way that you need to think about capitalization in your titles. If you overuse it, it's going to either become white noise or people are just going to glaze right over it. They don't want to see complete capitalization, but it is good to use on a few words here and there in the title. So I would definitely recommend using going back to the example that we just used, top secret location. I would definitely capitalize top secret or top secret location, and then the rest could be, you know, just normal text. That's a great way to just grab the eye, because again, that thumbnail is going to be really important. That thumbnail is definitely the #1 draw on YouTube, but secondary to that is your headline. That's another tip. Let's talk about that too, because I've had some people who have had questions about why don't we use the same thing that we use for the title, somehow incorporate that into the thumbnail. We like to have them be completely different words. And the reason why we found this was actually when we were doing some testing on our own channel, a lot of our early thumbnails, we actually thought, okay, consistency makes sense, right? Consistency will make it easier for someone to tell that they're going to land on the right information. It makes it very clear what the goal of the channel is or the goal of the video is. That makes sense. But what we started to find is that we were using, say we were doing a Dallas, Texas vlog. We started with some of those thumbnails where we started saying, you know, Dallas, Texas vlog on the thumbnail. And then on the title, we'd use Dallas, Texas vlog. Well, we found that they didn't really perform that well. The thumbnail didn't really perform that well. So when we switched it out to say something crazy like top secret location, or you'll never believe Dallas, or don't move to Dallas, instead of saying pros and cons of Dallas on the thumbnail. And you see me going like this because, again, we talked about that Z formation, but I'm talking about like on the thumbnail, you know, we'd have like right here on the thumbnail, we'd say pros and cons of Dallas. And then in the title, we'd say pros and cons of Dallas. Well, we found that that really wasn't performing well. So instead, we'd change it to be like, don't move to Dallas. And then we'd use the keywords and make it more keyword intrinsic on the headline. And they started performing way, way better. So I would also recommend that as you're creating your thumbnails, as you're creating your headlines, make them unique. Make them as if they are their own items. And then, of course, you can go back and cross-test or A/B test those. You can use that, do that using TubeBuddy. So I would definitely recommend that. So hopefully that clears up some of your questions that you've had about headlines, about thumbnails. I definitely think that headlines and titles are, like I said, kind of a mix of science and art. There is an art to kind of figure, and there's a flow. Once you kind of get to know your own voice and you kind of start to write your own descriptions and you kind of get into the mix of things, it becomes a little bit easier for you to come up with catchy titles for yourself. The more that you kind of find that voice for yourself, think of how you're impactful with people on a daily basis. And this is another thing. This is something that we're kind of breaking into a little bit more and exploring a little bit more, but in marketing, brand archetyping is really important. And there's several different brand archetypes, and I'm not going to go into all of them today, but you have to kind of find out, where do you fit in that brand archetyping? Where do you fit? Are you the everyday man? Are you the person who it's like, oh yeah, that's the person that I'm like best friends with? I mean, a lot of us are kind of moving towards that with the YouTube channel. But, you know, there's also the educator. There's also the comedian or the jester, right? You've got somebody, you have to find your own brand archetype. You have to find your own flow with something. And as you kind of identify that, you're going to have an easier time coming up with your titles. Obviously, somebody who's not necessarily naturally somebody who's like the court jester, right? In terms of your brand archetype, they're really more of the everyday man. You obviously don't want to try and be the comedian on YouTube, right? That's not going to fit you. It's not going to be your true self when you're on there. And people totally buy into that. If you haven't noticed that already, try doing something that's completely out of your comfort zone in terms of like cracking a joke that doesn't feel natural to you. Try doing that on a video and see how that performs. People totally understand that authentic voice. And when you find that authentic voice, it's really easy to write titles. It's really easy to come up with thumbnail ideas. So just kind of dive into that a little bit more. Maybe if you're struggling a little bit with coming up with good headlines, coming up with good copy, coming up with good thumbnail titles and designs, kind of take a step back and try to determine, what are you trying to portray to your audience? What do you feel that you are naturally good at when it comes to being on camera? And that should really, 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 really help. Awesome. So, you know, this, now that I've kind of gone on my monologue, oh, there goes my coaster. I would really like to hear a little bit more from you guys. What are you struggling with on YouTube? We do have somebody who wanted me to review a channel, but I also want to know about your thoughts and feelings about the program, that maybe if you're taking our program, if you have questions about that. What are you struggling with your YouTube channel? Go ahead and pop them in the comments, because I will be answering those after we go through this channel review. If there are any questions, please do comment below, because this is what this is for. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up this channel really quick, and I do not see him in the studio with me here. So hopefully he's watching on YouTube. You go ahead, and if you want to go to the Facebook group, if you're with us, living in Northwest Indiana, and if you are in the YouTube stream, go ahead and go back to the Facebook group, and there, the link to come into the live stream with me to be live on camera is at the top of the page. So go ahead and do that. And for anybody else who has a question that would like to have me answer a question live, feel free to come and join me in the studio too. We can have up to 10 people in here at a time. So I'd love to have you here. And I don't see our living in Northwest Indiana. I'm so sorry. I completely forgot your name. But let's go ahead, and I'm going to see if I can figure out how to do the screen share on here. Levi is usually the one in control of the screen, so we'll see if I can bring it up. Let's see, present, maybe this is it. This is the first time that I have used StreamYard for screen sharing, so I do apologize. Let's see, share the screen. There we go. I think I figured it out. Okay, awesome. All right, so I can't really see you guys anymore, but I am looking at the channel. Hopefully you guys are also looking at the channel here. But let's see, so living in Northwest Indiana. Awesome. So the first thing I'm going to say is that your cover photo, it has some great color to it, but it's a little bit confusing. And in marketing, if it, one of the C's of marketing is confusing. If it's confusing, people are going to have a really hard time, obviously, figuring out what they need to do. There's a couple of parts of this piece right here that is confusing to me. Number one, I was really confused by the hashtag here. It took me like a hot minute to try and figure out what this is actually trying to communicate. And I realized it's Northwest Indiana. But for somebody who's coming in here for the first time, NW Indiana is going to feel, it's not going to feel like, what they're looking for. So I would actually remove this altogether. And I would talk more about what do you want them to do? What do you want the person who is watching your videos to do? We want them to subscribe. And so, we always tell people, and we have a template in our course for how to create a really great banner image. So I would recommend, if you're not in the course, definitely go check that out. And if you are in the course, go to our template and you should be able to find a really good, Canva template. There's a Photoshop template. It should really help. But basically, we want them first to subscribe. So, we want them to talk about the word subscribe up here. If they want, what do we want them to learn? What should they expect? We're all about NW Indiana Homes. Kind of doesn't really tell people what they're coming for. That tells them what you're all about, but what is it that they're going to learn about when they come to your channel? So you have to be really explicit. And that's another thing with marketing and just marketing yourself on social media in general. We have gotten really lazy as a society, right? It's just a natural cause and effect that comes with being in a short form world. Even with long form video, we have short attention spans, right? So you have to capture people really quickly. You really have to capture somebody on a video in the first 3 to 5 seconds. It's the same thing with your marketing and design materials. You have to catch people very quickly. And the first thing you want them to do is to clearly understand what they are going to get out of your channel. What are they going to learn about? So I would say, rather than we're all about Northwest Indiana Homes, I would say subscribe to this channel if you want to learn all about living in Northwest Indiana. So something along those lines is going to be a little bit more clear. And I would look at our Living in Dallas, Texas channel banner. That will give you a really good idea of kind of the format. You don't necessarily have to do it exactly the same way as us, as long as the action items are there and kind of the things that you're wanting people to learn about, first of all. And second of all, what do you want them to do? The next thing is over here on the right-hand side, I'm also seeing some of your social media links. And we talk about this in the course a lot. You really don't want to have your social media links here. One, because you really don't want people jumping off of your channel, right? You want them to spend more time on your channel, and that can distract them and take them away from the platform altogether. So I would remove those. I would remove those also if you have those in your description. I don't really recommend having those at all. Second of all, I would really make this all about what do you want that person to do, right? We talked about right here, talking about what do we want people to actually do? What are they going to learn? What do they need to do to learn that? So I would make this a total action item here and have them subscribe to the channel. Or sorry, excuse me. You want them to go and sign up for a call with you. You want them to subscribe and sign up for a call with you. So this should be an action item right here. What do you want them to do? You want them to sign up for a call with you. So that's what you want there. And then last of all, I would also recommend going in and making sure that your design is mobile compatible, because right here I can already tell that about half of your banner is cut off. And I wish that I could, I don't think I have is my paint thing here? No, my paint thing's not up here right now. I need to install that again. I think I uninstalled it for some reason. But right about here, right here, you're going to see that this is about where the cutoff is on mobile. So as you can see, you're going to have this completely cut off. So your hashtag wouldn't even, sit there. I'd also completely remove these because, again, you really don't want to promote people going and finding you on other platforms. YouTube needs to be, if you want it to be the primary platform that you're getting leads on, it really needs to be just focused on YouTube. And I really could say the same about a lot of the other social media platforms. There is some value in cross-posting, but when you're wanting people to spend a lot of time watching your videos, I really would recommend just keeping people honed in on the platform that they're on. Let's see, but I am really impressed. You've got 292 subscribers. That's really awesome. I think that your channel name's great. You've got some good long form content going here. What I will say is I think that your thumbnails could use a little bit of work. What you'll notice here is, and sorry, it's making, it leaves when I hover over it, it's going to disappear. But you'll notice that there's a lot of green on green here. And you don't want to use the same colors. And last week we talked a lot about the color wheel. I would look at the color wheel and definitely determine what are the contrasting colors that you have here. They're called complementary colors on the color wheel. So if you look that up, you'll actually find probably a wheel that says, okay, this is a complementary color to this color. It's whatever color is directly across from it on the color wheel. So I would definitely recommend changing the color and maybe even the font that you're using. I mean, it is a chunkier font, which is really great. But anything that you can make it, you know, easier to see, like on a mobile. Right here, I'm on desktop. And on desktop, I'm even having a difficult time kind of seeing at a glance what some of these things are saying. Like this to me is a little bit thin. This top 5 homes of Northwest Indiana, it's a little thin for me. And it's just, of course, the colors just don't really work. It works a little bit better on this one right here, just because the green and the pink and the purple contrast a little bit more. But on the grass below, you also see the same thing. So I would definitely look at some different colors and find some contrasting colors that would work better. But, you know, that font probably is fine if it's a little bit bolder. I would probably go a little bit bolder. But yeah, I would definitely, I think colors are definitely the main thing here. You did a great job of taking your headshots though, so that's awesome. The last thing I'll say about your thumbnails is I would switch your actual face over to the right side on every time. And the reason being is because we read like this. We read in a Z formation. So you want the most important information really to be on your left side, because in terms of the order, your most important information, and actually, and again, sorry, I can't really see what I'm doing because I'm screen sharing right now, but you're wanting your most important information to be that side, and then you are kind of like the least important. As much as we love you, you're the least important thing on that thumbnail, and apologize, sorry about that. So yeah, other than that, things look great. I would make your face a little bit bigger because typically we want to have your face be really, really big. I know it's a little uncomfortable for us to sometimes have our face that big, but you really want your forehead to be kind of towards the top of the thumbnail and your chin to be pretty close to the bottom of the thumbnail. So you can make yourself bigger, find some contrasting colors. That should really, really help your thumbnails. Oh, and of course, putting your thumbnail picture on the right-hand side versus on the left-hand side, that should really help the performance of your video. So that was awesome. And it looks like we've got Claudia in the studio with us. So welcome, Claudia. If you want to come up on camera, just go ahead and turn your camera on and give me a thumbs up. Then you can ask your question there. Otherwise, you can also talk in the private chat or in the public chat and ask a question there. I'm going to go pop over to our Facebook group really quick because I know that we had some questions in the Facebook group as well. Awesome. Yeah, we had a couple of them come through. Let's see here. Okay, awesome. It looks like we answered most of the questions for today because a lot of the questions we've had have been around headlines, have been around copy. One other thing that I will mention too, we have had some questions about the importance of hashtagging. Hashtags have definitely gone down in importance. However, we still like to add them because any chance that we can add a little bit of extra SEO value is never bad. And so for those of you who are considering not using hashtags, I would definitely not recommend that. They're definitely not as important as they used to be. Used to be that you could just throw up a bunch of hashtags, and if some of them were relevant, then you would rank for pretty much all of them. That's not the case anymore. And the reason that YouTube really did this was really more to make it, again, everything that YouTube does is to increase the user experience. A lot of people, and it's the same thing that happened back in Google. Back in the day, I was an account manager for Google Ads, and actually I was there at the birth time of Facebook ads, marketplace ads as well. I remember the ads back at the beginning of Facebook they were not good at the very, very beginning of Facebook. They were, I mean, people, it was like spitballing and maybe you'd land on something. It was very, very basic. But with Google, it was the same thing. You know, you hear about the rise of Google and how keywords were so important. Bloggers were really getting into using keywords. But what Google started to see was a lot of keyword stuffing, where people were just throwing in a bunch and using black hat SEO techniques. Now you can't do that. Why? Why did they make all of those improvements? Was it just to make it and so that nobody could do anything, that providers for services could no longer make money? Were they trying to bankrupt people? Absolutely not. The main reason that they did that was because the user experience was being affected by people throwing in all of these different hashtags and keywords and things like that. I don't know if you've ever been to a website, and I'm sorry for all the people who do recipes and recipe blogging, not trying to throw you under the bus, but back in the day, I don't know if anybody has been to one of these websites recently, but you'll see that a random keyword is like highlighted, and it's like you click on it and it's a link and it'll take you somewhere completely different. It doesn't take you to the next recipe. Sometimes it'll take you to some type of affiliate link. That's the type of stuff that people were really doing before. And that really affects the user experience. It's not a good user experience. And so that's recorded, you know. The analytics are always being watched. The heat map is always being watched by YouTube and by Google. And so if the user experience isn't good, it's going to affect your channel. So ultimately, that's why the hashtags kind of were reduced in importance, because a lot of people were just relying on the hashtags and hoping it would land in the right place. But the hashtags were also landing those videos in irrelevant content streams. And so I would definitely recommend being very intentional and very purposeful with the types of hashtags that you put in there, because you don't want to just throw any hashtags into your copy. That goes for the ones that you put at the very bottom of your description area, and then the ones that you put in the tag section. Be very intentional and make sure they're relevant. The more relevant they are, try to take up about 400 characters in your tag section. The more relevant they can be, the better your user's experience will be, and the more relevant your audience will be. And obviously that's going to get you pushed out farther. Awesome. Claudia had a question. Focusing on the Hispanic market, expecting to move cities and states right now, and thus focusing on general info. Would love to know your thoughts on my thumbnails. Awesome. Let's do a little channel review really quick. Let me pull it up really quick and I'll do a quick screen share. Awesome. Okay, so let's pull it up over here. Awesome. Oh, I love your banner. Your banner is really good. That's really, really great. Let's see. And I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish, and so I may not be able to, to translate over here. I will tell you this. I always joke with my team because our video manager is originally, she's from Mexico. And so she speaks Spanish. And so I took an 8th grade Spanish class. And so every once in a while I can pick up what people are saying, but that's pretty much all I got. But this looks great. And it's awesome that you're focusing purely on Spanish speakers. I think that that's really valuable. And we actually talked about this yesterweek. I keep saying, I said that the other day too. On yesterweek, we talked about this where, there's a big opportunity for people who speak a certain language to only cater to those people. There's value in doing it for English speakers as well, but you know that there's nobody who's doing it just for the Spanish speakers. So I think that that's a really smart positioning that you've done. But yeah, let's look at some of these. So I think that your colors are good. Yellow and red are typically really, really good together. And overall, I really love this type of thing. I would say I would really prefer to see you over on this side though, just because again, you want to look at the content and what you're going to be watching before we look at you. And my eye was actually drawn to you first, 1, because you're bigger, and 2, because you're on the left-hand side. So I would flip over to the right-hand side instead of being on the left-hand side, but I really, really like this imagery here. Really, really great. Let's look at some of these other ones. And I love that you're using, 3 words. I think that that's really smart. Between 3 and 4 words is ideal. And so I definitely stick to that. But yeah, I'd say my biggest criticism is just flip you over to the right-hand side versus being on the left-hand side. I really think that this is great, and it's showing in your views. I mean, your views are here, and I can see the ones that, you know, are performing really, really well. Let's see. Let's go down to these ones. Yeah, I really like these. You're doing a great job with using the 3 words and the positioning of your thumbnails. This is a really good one right here. I really like the colors that you use. So overall, great job. I really don't have a whole lot of criticism on your thumbnails. I think overall they're really great. If I spoke Spanish, I might be able to be more helpful on the wording. But overall, I think that everything looks really, really good. So keep doing what you're doing and maybe just flip yourself over to the right-hand side. And I think that you're doing a great job. Great. Any other questions? I know today's a little bit shorter than normal just because, yeah, you're welcome, Claudia. It's a little shorter than normal just because I feel like when Levi and I kind of go back and forth, we kind of feed off of each other's energy, and it's just me today. And we're not getting a whole lot of comments in the comment section today, but that's okay. We have a lot of people who are asking questions in the group, and I think that that's awesome. For those of you who are not a member of the Real Agents group, and actually it's going to be switching over to our new branding, Passive Prospecting. So go ahead and search for that in Facebook if you have not joined that group already. It's a great group to be a part of. We offer tips on our course, and if you're not in the course, you definitely got to check that out. Going to passiveprospecting.com. You'll be able to check that out. We've got a full course on how to make your YouTube channel do more for your real estate business and how to get your videos out farther and to sell more houses without cold calling, door knocking, sending out postcards, or any of that traditional marketing that you're used to with your real estate business. It's really a fantastic course. We've gotten some great feedback recently on how effective it's been for them. We've had agents everywhere using it. We've started to work with people in even other countries now outside of the US, and we're getting great feedback on it. So if you're not a part of that course and you'd like to learn more about it, go ahead. You can actually join us for a live call that we do just about the course specifically, 5starstrategycall.com. We'll talk about the course. We do about a 45-minute training on that. Levi runs that training for the most part, and then we do a Q&A session at the end that I join in for. All right, Claudia, can you speak on how to monetize the channel besides leads? What kind of affiliate marketing can we leverage with an RE channel? Well, that's actually a very interesting question. And, you know, we monetized the channel, but it wasn't even on purpose. It was kind of a secondary goal to what we were actually trying to do. But it kind of naturally does happen. When you have 1,000 subscribers, you'll be able to monetize the channel. So it's really just as quickly as you can grow the channel that you can start to monetize that. Now, the monetization is definitely not a significant portion of the income that we experience from the YouTube channel. The leads definitely are what make the channel so profitable for us. However, there are lots of other ways that you can do that. And actually, if you want some really great ideas on how to monetize your channel creatively, then I would actually look at YouTube Secrets by Sean Cannell and Benji Travis. We're actually featured in that book, not me in particular, but Levi and Travis, our brand, I should say, is featured in that book. And they talk about a lot of different unique creative ways to monetize your channel, from brand deals to just getting more ad revenue, that type of thing. I will say that as far as our channel goes, we see a surge around the videos that perform well. And so, I mean, if you have a well-performing video, you're going to get paid for that. It will be small at the very beginning, but if you keep at it and you're consistent with it, that's going to be the key to monetizing your channel from an ad revenue perspective. Brand deals are actually becoming more and more common, though. I will say this, especially with people who are, you know, present on other social media platforms. A lot of the big brands that used to do deals with exclusively with big influencers are actually switching to smaller brands. And the reason why is because we have more focused audiences. With the way that social media has kind of progressed, there's also a lot of stuff coming out about how a lot of the bigger brands and the bigger influencers have more and more bots in their following too. And so there was a statistic, and I cannot remember what the exact statistic was. I remember it was over 50%. But what used to be the brand deals that were going out, it's over 50%. And it's probably a lot more than that. I'm just forgetting the exact statistic. Over 50% of the brand deals that are going out are going to smaller influencers and not to the big, huge influencers that you see out there. And so a lot of times it's as simple as asking the question. You will get people who will reach out to you, but if you have a product or, you know, something that you use that a brand deal could be a possibility, I would reach out to the company and yourself and ask them if they'd be interested in that. And so that's one way to do that. Brand deals are becoming more and more common for smaller brands. So that's definitely a secondary stream of income that you could start with that. But like I said, that's not really like the main purpose of the channel. So I can't speak to a lot of the other brand or the other monetization options, but you know, our channel was naturally monetized just because our content was consumed as much as it was. And so that does happen after about 1,000 subscribers. And so you'll be able to get those ads placed at the beginning, the end, or you can put them in the middle. You can choose the positioning of those ads so that you can tell YouTube when you want them to play. Great question though. Let's see. I think we might have a couple more minutes here to answer a couple more questions, just speedy through the Facebook group. Let me go check one place to see if we've got some more questions here. Otherwise, we can also call it a day. I know Levi's not here. I'm not the star of the show most of the time. A lot of times you see me kind of in the background. I do a lot of optimization stuff. You know, back when we started the channel, Levi called me up and I was there at the very beginning, but I used to do a bunch of different things with Levi. We used to do design work together. He would ask me to do some stuff for his website. I even edited a few of his early videos for other brands. So, you know, when we started out together, we kind of built this thing from the ground up, and it's been really fun to be able to do that. Let's see. How do I decide on a channel name? Great question, Renee. We kind of talked about that at the beginning of the video. And so actually, if you weren't here at the very beginning, I would actually go back and watch the recording. By the way, this is going to be recorded, and all of our live videos are actually recorded and they're left on the channel. So if you go to our live playlist, you should be able to see this video shortly after we hang up the hat here. But with a channel name, actually, I guess at the very beginning, we did talk more about headlines, but it still applies to titles as well. Channel titles, you definitely want to do some work in TubeBuddy. I would start with, again, a base keyword, and that base keyword is going to be along the lines of, you know, your city and state. Now, some people find that the traffic is a little bit higher for the abbreviation of the state versus the actual full out spelled out name. So for instance, we were talking about Denver, Colorado as the example there. Some people find that something like Denver CO performs better in YouTube. So something along the lines of living in Denver CO, living in Denver, Colorado, Denver, Colorado living. So I would go through and find, I usually like to go and this is what I tell people when they come into the video editing program as well, write down 5 to 10 renditions that really explains what you're doing. And it needs to be lifestyle related. And I really would not include your name at the beginning. If you do want to include your name, it probably should be a secondary title. But I would come up with 5 to 10 different renditions of living in Denver, Colorado, moving to Denver, Colorado, Denver, Colorado living, Denver, Colorado life, that type of thing. Make 5 to 10 different renditions of that. Then take that directly to TubeBuddy and search and see what the relevancy score is, see what the traffic score is like, and just get an overall view of what that score is going to look like for you. Overall, I think that that's going to weed out a lot of the other titles. And even if it's similar or even the same as 1 or 2 other channels out there, that's okay. The channel name is really probably one of the less important parts of the channel, especially at the beginning. Your individual videos are going to help your channel rank. The channel title is great because it adds just one more little layer of SEO relevancy and just a higher SEO score in general, but it's not going to make or break your channel, especially if it's like the same as maybe 1 or 2 other channels. I would just focus on making sure that it's a good keyword, it's got a good keyword score, and then, you know, run with it from there, and then just focus really hard on the titles of each of your individual videos. Awesome. Any other questions today, guys? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and jump for today. But like I said, we do have that Facebook group. For those of you who are not a part of that, if you've ever been in our Facebook group, we've got a really fun culture over there. We have a lot of people who are willing to help, very positive environment, very supportive. People will answer your questions usually before me or Levi can get in there and actually answer your questions. So we've got a great community over there, tons of great training happening in there. We have training 3 times a week. This is only one of the trainings. We have a course call that's directly with me on Tuesday nights. We have this call, which is a live that we have. And then we also have a Clubhouse call that's purely audio, but you can join in on those. And those are usually on Tuesdays. We're also going to be updating the banner so that people can actually see when those times are, just on a general schedule. Things do change. You know, like I said, Levi is gone today. He's in San Diego at a conference. So obviously he was not on the call today. So occasionally we'll have some things that don't happen on the same days that we post up there. But when those things happen, we usually will make a post in the Facebook group. So we, you know, obviously you'll be able to see those changes. But yeah, we have training all week long. We also have a support email for people who have started the course, who are struggling with something, or if you have questions about maybe getting started. support@passiveprospecting.com is where you can email us for that. And we'll get back to you as soon as we can on those. We usually check those emails, you know, several times a day. And so we can get back to you on any questions that you might have. But otherwise, thank you so much for those of you who joined me today. And we will just plan on seeing you again next week. Bye now.